Yes, here we go. Sportsbook betting insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Wednesday, September 5th. The NFL is here. We'll get to the Falcons and the Eagles coming up, and TCU and SMU, big game breakdown. I know everyone's ready to go with nothing but winners for the last 2 weeks here on Sportsbet. All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. I'm at Real Sportsbet on Twitter. He's at Teddy_covers, and we started going live on August 1st. So let's rock and roll with the short bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Not a lot of movement yesterday in MLB, but there was steam on the Rockies, and rightfully so. 165 up to 190. They are 17-2 in their last 19 home games against the Giants. They win and cover the run line. And the Dodgers from $2 up to $2.60. They won and cover the run line 11-4. Two bad results for the books.
Yeah, same thing with the Indians. The Indians bet up -220 up to -240. They win. They win on the run line, a 9-3 final. So when you have three big chalk, Colorado, LA, Cleveland, all come through, all take steam, all cash on the run line, you know what? Not a great result for the books. There was a lot of parlay liability last night, and that parlay liability turned in the bettors' favor. Bad result for the house. They didn't price the favorites in MLB quite high enough.
This steam was off. 30-cent move on the Mariners up to 210. Something to follow. They had a fight, little Donnybrook in the clubhouse before the game, and then they went out and lost to the Orioles. Leak goes tonight, who's was top 5 in ROI with pitchers. So that's something to track. After this game, the Yankees come into town. So we'll see if there's any turmoil there in the clubhouse after the fight as they go out and lose to the Orioles and they took money. And I think the A's should be worried about the Rays and not the Mariners. The Rays won again. They've won 13 of 15. They're 17 games over 500. They are only 6 back in the loss column.
Shh. Tampa Bay's been my little money-making machine, man. The Rays have been a lot of fun. But let's talk about the Mariners last night, because when you talk about a locker room, and this was a brawl, it was a Donnybrook. It wasn't like a little thing. It spilled out. The media got a hold of it. There were pictures around. And then you come out, your $2 chalk to Baltimore, and you lose that game. That is as strong a negative sign as you can find. That is a sell sign on Seattle. Leak might be the number 1 ROI pitcher, but you're right about those Rays. Might make a little noise before this season's done. Might make a little noise before today's done as they road chalk in Toronto tonight.
Yep. Top 5. Fire's still number 1. A's 5-0 since they acquired him. What a season he's having. He's going against Severino coming up. One vicious push. A tough beat. First 5 if you had the Cardinals. 4-0 in the bottom of the 5th, and then walk fest started. You at least get out of there with a push as the Nats rally to tie it. Cardinals won the game, but it was 4-4 going to the 6th. Then they hit 3 home runs and eventually won 11-8 in that one. How about some props? NFL season starts tomorrow. First coach fired. Dirk Cutter, the favorite at 3-1. Hugh Jackson, who is 0-30 straight up on Sundays, which is hilarious, as the coach of the Browns. The only win was on a Saturday. How about Harbaugh at 20-1? I think they're going to go over the win total, but I'm just trying to make a case here because they haven't made the playoffs the last 3 years. Gase at 12-1. Maybe Bill O'Brien if the Texans get off to a slow start. What do you think? First coach fired prop at NFL offshore.
Well, what's interesting in my mind is not the guys necessarily at the top of the list. It's the guys that flat out aren't going to get fired. Belichick's not getting fired. Peterson's not getting fired. Peyton's not getting fired. Tomlin, Reed, McVay, Shanahan, none of these guys, they can do anything. Their teams can go 0-10 to open the season, and nothing's going to happen. So what this list really does gives you an idea of which coaches have no chance of getting fired in season and which coaches, maybe they better watch out. Obviously Dirk Cutter in Tampa is on the hottest seat coming into the season. And obviously Hugh Jackson and his 0-30 record on Sundays is on the second hottest seat. Although I think if it came to a mid-season scenario where both these teams started off lousy, Cutter would get fired before Jackson. There's more hope this year for Tampa than there is for Cleveland. But look at Jason Garrett near the top of that list, the Cowboys' longtime head coach. Not the guy who the markets think necessarily. And again, make no mistake about it. With these lines, these are entertainment purposes lines. You're not going to get down 5 dimes on who's going to be the first coach fired. But it is interesting to see the markets and how they react to some of these teams. Vance Joseph might be a guy I'd look at 10-1.
Yes.
If Denver gets off to a rough start, I don't know that Joseph will make it to midseason.
I'm with you on that one. He should have been fired last year, many felt. This is a fiasco, too. How are you going to grade this? Some bozo media guy or somebody in the stands on Twitter? Because NBC, I think it was NBC and another network who said they're not going to show I think it was ESPN. ESPN and NBC aren't going to show the anthem anymore. So total number of players not to stand in week one, over 34.5. And teams with most players not to stand for the anthem in week one. Seahawks lead the way minus $2.
Yeah. Again, they're interesting props to consider as to how they get graded, as to how much you're going to get down on these props. Look, for entertainment purposes only, but I like to spotlight stuff like this because it gives an idea what kind of betting options are out there. We talk a lot about size. We talk a lot about totals. We don't talk a lot about what we call the derivative marketplace in the sports betting nearly as much as we should, where if you have an opinion on one thing, it can lead to other bets down the line. So for national anthem props, look, over, it's an interesting number too. Over 34.5 versus under 34 total players not to stand. What do you think, Pauly? Just off the top of your head, when you go over or under that number? I don't know what I would do. I'm just thinking about it.
No, I would take it under. I'd definitely take it under. I guess some guys will stay in the locker room. I would go under with that as well. But I don't know. Who knows? Gun to my head, I'd take the under on that one. All right, big game breakdown. The NFL is here. Here we go. This number continues to plummet. Foles will start for the Eagles, the champs at home on NBC against the Falcons. It was 4.5. Now it's down as low as 1.5, and the total is 45. It's a revenge for Atlanta. They met in the divisional round, and the Eagles won 15-10. The Eagles were 6 of 13 on third down, and Foles was 23 of 30 for 246. Matt Ryan was 22 of 36 for 210 and a touchdown. Julio had 100 yards. It was the only Atlanta touchdown in that game was set up on a fumbled punt by the Eagles, and they shut the Falcons out in the second half. Of course, got the big goal line stand at the end to win 15-10. Jeffrey's out. Haloti Ngata comes in. Bennett comes in. Blunt's gone. Torrey Smith is gone. They have Mike Wallace. They just signed Wheaton at wide receiver. But the big news is Foles. How long is he going to be the quarterback? Of course, what happened last year with the Super Bowl, but he was horrible in the preseason as they scored 0 points in 10 preseason drives with the first team.
Yeah, and when you look at the Wentz/Foles situation, it happened really uniquely for Philadelphia last year in a way that most teams with QB controversies don't have this level of continuity. But when you have the backup QB win the Super Bowl for you, and then you say, all right, the other guy's going to be the starter coming into the next season, and the other guy's not ready, and the guy who won the Super Bowl has really had, make no mistake about it, Nick Foles has had a very rough preseason. It wasn't pretty at any point for Philadelphia offensively in August. And we say, we don't worry about it too much, except for that the brain trust for Philadelphia, their offense coordinator, their QB coach from last year, well, they both left. So now it's a team trying to find that same level of offensive magic. And they had it last year, but they're doing it with a new staff in place and a backup quarterback that hasn't played particularly well against a Falcons defense, Pauly, that, as you mentioned, has matched up very well with Philadelphia in the past in recent meetings, and a defense that improved by leaps and bounds last year. You're looking for why Atlanta didn't suffer the massive Super Bowl loser hangover last year? Not because of the offense. It's because of the defense. That defense was absolutely loaded in 2017. And Dan Quinn, a defensive guy, has another strong defense on tap for this year. But Quinn, most assuredly not a preseason type of guy. The Falcons went over in August. They did very, very little in terms of getting their starters playing time on the offensive side of the football.
10-6 last year straight up, 11-5 to the under after they went 16-3 to the over 2 years ago, and every home game and playoff game went over. That's because the defense allowed 16 points per game in the last 7 games. They did a great job and had all those unders. Now, our late friend, the great Dave Malinsky, said last year, what happened to Matt Ryan last year? Was it Sark? What was Matt Ryan? 2 years ago was the fluke. In 2016, he had 38 touchdown passes and a passer rating of 117. Last year, he had 20 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions, and the rating was 91. But you go back and look in his career, here's his passer rating, QB rating: 87, 80, 91, 92, 99, 89, 93, 89, and 91. 2 years ago was the fluke with Shanahan when they should have won the Super Bowl. So the guy we saw last year was the Matt Ryan that we know and love. And I think some of the blame, too, goes on Sark with some ridiculous play calling and the inability to find Julio in the red zone. On the flip side, one quote I love, Doug Peterson: "We still got some hungry guys, and there won't be a letdown because we had 5 starters who didn't play in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, so don't worry about that." And it's a nasty Philadelphia defense. Football Outsiders had them top 5 defense and top 5 run defense.
Oh, yeah. And when you look at Philadelphia in particular, the strength of that defense is up front. I mean, it might even be better defensive line than last year. Maybe the best in the league. Rotation. They got Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Chris Long, Michael Bennett, Haloti Ngata, Fletcher Cox, all on the defensive line. That is going to be a tough matchup for the Falcons up front. That's going to be a tough matchup for any team up front. And Philadelphia, a team that wants to attack the line of scrimmage defensively. That's what their whole defensive game plan is based on. That's what Jim Schwartz wants to do. He did it very successfully last year. They may well have success doing it against Atlanta tonight because, I mean, look, we talk about Philadelphia not doing much in the preseason. I mean, Matt Ryan barely played. Julio Jones didn't even see the field. Devonta Freeman didn't even see the field. Neither guy played a down in 4 preseason games. Mohamed Sanu, Tevin Coleman, Calvin Ridley, very, very little playing time. The end result, the first team offense, they played KC. It was the only game where they played, and they looked pretty good. They struggled against the Jags, and both of those games were without Freeman and Jones. But the bottom line is that's a defense that's an offense for Atlanta that has a boatload of weapons that we didn't see in August. Same thing for Philadelphia. So while we are talking about 2 strong defenses and 2 teams that have been playing defensive scrums in recent years, as you mentioned, 10 and 15 points for Atlanta the last 2 meetings against Philadelphia. You look at the skill position talent for these 2 teams. Both squads do have weapons, downfield weapons. We'll see if those weapons get utilized on Thursday night in a game that, this game should be a whole lot of fun, Pauly. It really should be for a Thursday night opener. And I'll tell you what, I remember when we first started doing the show, we had an angle, excuse me, about the Super Bowl winner at home on Thursday nights.
Yeah. What
a good bet that had been. And then I went back and looked for that graphic. And I'm like, Super Bowl winner didn't win last year. The Patriots lost straight up to the Chiefs. The Broncos in 2016, the Thursday night opener against the Panthers in that Super Bowl rematch, they didn't cover that game. They won by 1. 2015, the Patriots against the Steelers, they pushed or lost ATS in that game. So it's been a while since the team at home on Thursday night took care of business straight up and ATS after a stretch of success on Thursday nights. The last few years hasn't been nearly as good. The last Thursday night home favorite winning cover in the opener came all the way back in 2014 when the Seahawks beat a very banged up Packers team 36-16. So it's been a while for the favorites on Thursday night, Pauly. We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the daytime.
I like Atlanta on the side, but although, take the money, the value's gone as we do the show today. We have an opinion on win totals? Well, with Atlanta in a tough division that put 3 teams in the playoffs last year, and who can challenge the Eagles in the East? Maybe the Giants might be the second best team with all the offensive line issues with the Cowboys, and who's Dak going to throw to?
Yeah, Atlanta's been very strong with the win totals in every season, obviously, since Dan Quinn has gotten there. They're not a team I'm in any rush to bet under the total, even in that tough NFC South. When it comes to Philadelphia, I've got an Eagles under 10.5 win ticket in my pocket. That's largely schedule-based. Their schedule is just brutal. Even in the NFC East, that isn't loaded with quality contenders. Philadelphia, they'll be up against it week after week after week. I also think the brain drain, when you talk about DeFilippo and Reich both leaving town, I think that matters for Philadelphia. Maybe not week 1, but I think over the course of the season, the loss of their QB coach and their offense coordinator from last year is going to cause a hiccup or two. Philly, yeah, I mean, they're not a bad team. They're still a 9-10 win team, but 10.5 to me seemed a little bit rich on the Philadelphia Eagles.
It is a brutal schedule. All right, ESPN2, Friday night, TCU, SMU. TCU's 21.5, 58.5 the total. Early money for the under. SMU now with Sonny Dykes. It was a horror show last week. North Texas beat SMU 46-23. It wasn't that close. At one point, it was a 27-1 first down edge for North Texas. They led 36-0 before SMU scored all their points in garbage time in the fourth quarter. And Mason Fine, the terrific quarterback of North Texas, was 40 of 50 for 444. Mercy. And TCU played a cupcake and won by 48.
Yeah. Now, for SMU, they do have the quarterback, a third-year starter in Ben Hicks. Of course, he was 12 of 24 with a pick against North Texas last week in that misleading final score loss. I agree. The 46-23 does not represent that game. That game was a complete blowout, and 46-23 seems like it's kind of a blowout. And Hicks, the last 2 years, third-year starter, he's played TCU each of the last 2 seasons. 244 passing yards 2 years ago. Last year, 305 passing yards, but he's thrown 2 picks in each game, just 2 TDs, 4 INTs, completed less than half his passes, although he has connected on a handful of big plays against that Horned Frogs defense. Battle for the iron skillet. TCU defensive end Ty Summers, I'm talking about playing SMU. Quote, "It seems a lot more personal because you're fighting for the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area. So whoever wins this game has, in a way, bragging rights. So it makes things more interesting and fun." Of course, TCU's won 16 of the last 18 in the series. But, Pauly, red flag alert. You want to talk flat spot? TCU's got Ohio State on deck at AT&T Stadium. You worry about the look ahead here, even for Gary Patterson's squads that have been pretty good at avoiding look ahead scenarios.
Yeah, it's a bad spot. I totally agree. Although, you got the rivals, and Patterson's talking about what happened last year when the game they trailed. I think it was last year, 2 years ago. They trailed in the second quarter and then ran them out 56-36. SMU has not defeated TCU at home since 2005. So they've won, they're on a great run here, but they have lost twice. And in 2011, they got beat after they had the upset win at Oklahoma and then followed that up with a loss against SMU 21-10. So I know Dykes has that TCU connection as well. Some people are worried about that. Patterson said no big deal, although Patterson loves playing this game because there's no travel, and he said it's hard to get games now too.
Yeah, and look, SMU has a problem with dual threat quarterbacks. They had a problem during the Chad Morris era. I don't know that new defense coordinator Kevin Kane is going to make a huge difference in getting them to contain Sean Robinson. We know that Kenny Hill was a monster at the quarterback for TCU, but Sean Robinson, 5 TDs last week, 3 passing, 2 rushing. He's a prospect you want to keep your eye on. Certainly comes highly regarded, and a guy who the markets seem to like a fair bit, every bit as much as they liked Kenny Hill last year.
All right, let's do it again. Money time, play of the day, betting number 451, 452. You know where we're going. All that information we gave you, Falcons, Eagles under 45. It was 15-10 last year. They held the Falcons in check 2 years ago at home. 2 nasty defenses, and Atlanta allowed 16 points per game again, their last 7, and Philly had a top 5 defense, top 5 run defense as well. Plus all these issues that Jeffrey's out, Wentz is out. They couldn't do anything in the preseason with the first team offense. We'll go under 45. I like Atlanta too, but +4, +3, everything's gone. It's down to 1.5 now in most spots as well. Winner with the Yankees yesterday. Nothing but winners for the last 2 weeks. Let's keep it going. Under 45 tomorrow as the NFL is here. Plenty of NFL and college the next couple days. Thanks for watching. All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. Sportsbit on SBR Picks. Pauly and Teddy. I'm at Real Sportsbet on Twitter. He's at Teddy_covers. Thanks to the crew, Low Shack, and the Bag coming up next.